sitting here with you, Joe, the legend from Brooklyn. I watched you in iRobot. You're awesome.
Mr. Robot.
Mr. Robot.
I wish I was an iRobot.
We love your music. We love everything you stand for. We love that you're here. We love that you came here from your tour to share your time with us. That's big.
Thank you.
Thank you seriously, thank you for that. You all know Joe. You know that his latest album literally like dropped, went straight to #1. So congrats on that, because we know that there's a lot of hard work that goes into success, and we know that you spend a lot of time making shit happen. So congrats.
Just like that, we make shit happen.
And Wes, so I wanted to say that Wes is here, and our partnership with the Robin Hood Foundation is something really special for me, because Robin Hood has been a part of my family for a long time. But also, Robin Hood is the #1 poverty fighter in New York City, and if we can change things in New York City, we can change them anywhere. So Wes, my biggest thing for Wes is, you know, Wes has his book, The Other Westmore. I think this Westmore is the best Westmore. I think also Wes jumped out of planes and saved people as a paratrooper, which he did. You know, Wes is literally, I mean, Wes is here to change the world. So we're here to empower him to do that through Robin Hood, through everything Robin Hood stands for, and through what we stand for at VFILES. So I'm going to hand it over. We're going to have some conversation, then we're going to take some questions from you guys. And seriously, feel free to ask questions. This is a VFILES town hall meeting, anything can happen. And then we're also going to be taking some questions from social media as well. So there you have it. All right, well, who wants to start? Wes, you first?
My man Wes.
All right.
Thank you so much. And Julian, thank you so much. Thank you, VFILES, for having us. I mean, this is beyond an honor. And just to also have a chance to sit here with my man, Joey Badass, who I gotta tell you, it's not even the music that he puts together, it's the fact that he's not willing to compromise about the impact that he wants his music to have. You know, because it's really easy to sit out there and put together content that people are telling you that people want to hear. And it's one thing to stand up and say, nah, I'm going to speak my truth and people are going to love it. And that's exactly what the world has done. You spoke your truth.
Yes, sir.
You didn't compromise.
At all.
And the whole world responded to it. And so first, let me just tell you, it's a distinct honor and it's a distinct pleasure to sit up here and rap with you.
Likewise.
And maybe maybe I can start the conversation where one of the things I found fascinating was that, you know, you dropped Land of the Free on your 22nd birthday, which also happened to be the same day that our current president was inaugurated. And you rapped about it. How have these first 6 months been for you?
Can you turn my mic down a little bit? You know what I'm saying? I'm used to projecting my voice a lot, so. You know, these last 6 months have been really interesting, but just to really go back to the Land of the Free and, you know, my whole idea and mind state around that, like, to make a long story short, it was my way of protesting. You know what I mean? Like, it was my way of, like, you know, I believe that we can protest many different types of ways. The most common way we know is going out in the street with signs, blocking traffic, stuff like that. And, you know, I've been a part of those rallies. Like, I've been out there, but I can't help, like, every time I left those rallies, I felt like nothing was accomplished. I felt like we didn't make any progress. I felt like, you know, I remember when Freddie Gray had passed, you know what I mean? There was a huge rally out here in New York City, leading from all of Broadway, you know what I'm saying? And I was in there, and that was my first rally I've ever been to, my first protest. And I remember there was this moment where we sat down in the street, in the middle of the street on Broadway in Houston, you know what I mean? And I remember thinking to myself, like, what is this doing? Because we were blocking the traffic. You know, and I couldn't help but think that we were inconveniencing people just like us. I'm like, this is not doing anything to the government. You know what I'm saying? This is not doing anything to the people that we really like. This is not doing anything. You know what I'm saying? I mean, it's good that we all here, we gather, we got the strength of numbers, and we know what our protest is, we know what the message is that we want to spread, but this is not the way to do it. Like, I couldn't help but think about if I was driving one of those cars and maybe my wife was in labor and I'm trying to get to the hospital. And now I got, you know, people in the way. You know what I'm saying? And it's like, I get it, but it's like, don't inconvenience me. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm just a regular man. So just taking that mindset, just growing as an individual, I realized that, you know, because I have foresight. You know what I'm saying? I've always had the ability to see things before it happened. Some psychic nigga shit, but and you know, I felt what was coming. You know what I'm saying? Like, I just felt that the climate was changing, and you know, I could see that it was about to rain. You know what I'm saying? So like, I just really felt that I had to use my platform, my voice, to do something about it. You know what I'm saying? And I'm not like, yeah, I could just go to the studio and talk about a whole bunch of things into a mic and then, you know, put it out. But like, it was just my way of doing something about it. It was my way of protesting. And not just the song, the whole album. You know, I know you guys have heard that album. Like, that's what the whole album was about. You know what I'm saying? It was my protest. It was my call for help. It was my outreach, my outcry. You know what I'm saying? So.
But that's the thing, right? I mean, I think for a lot of people, they found themselves, there's two ways to react, right? There's a lot of people who have reacted and have felt weak. They felt like there's nothing I can do. They felt like all this stuff is going on and my voice is just quiet. And there's some people who reacted and this moment has made them strong.
I felt both ways. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know if you probably most likely did see the Ali movie. Do you remember the scene in there when he was reading the newspaper and he felt so helpless? That was me looking at Freddie Gray. That was me looking at Michael Brown. That was me looking at Trayvon Martin. Like, I felt weak. You know what I'm saying? I felt helpless. I'm like, damn, like, what can I do about this? You know what I'm saying? And I really started to just realize more and more that, like, okay, I have a platform, I have a voice. You know what I'm saying? I have the ability to speak for people who would never be heard. And I just thought that was more important than anything. You know what I'm saying? Anything that I could speak about at the moment. And that definitely made me feel strong. Yeah. You know, like, so that's why I say I felt both.
But that's the beauty, right? And that's the beauty, because that's the origins. Has been hip hop at its most powerful. You know, I mean, I spent a lot of my childhood really in two places. One's in the Bronx, and the other's in Baltimore. And so when you're talking about Freddie Gray, and you're talking about these things, I mean, these are personal. And I also know the thing that why hip hop always resonated with me. It wasn't just the beat. It wasn't just the fact that you would artists would put out a banger to every album. But it's the fact that they validated me. They validated my existence. They validated my childhood. They allowed people who never had any interaction with me, nor the people I came up with, and it allowed them the window into my life. And it allowed them to have a perspective that wasn't one of a deficiency. It was power. And it was one of strength. And now that I think, you know, how do you think about that frame? Because in your music, you feel powerful. How do you think about that and how that really serves as the engine behind what you're trying to accomplish and what you're trying to get done? Can you just elaborate? Yeah, so like when you're thinking about your music, you don't approach your music from a place of deficiency. You approach your music from a place of power, where the people who listen to your albums and your cuts, it's like you feel emboldened by it. And I can't imagine that's not intentional. I can't imagine that's not something that you're very deliberate about what you want your listeners to hear. when they listen to your album?
Well, let's take it a little back to what you were saying, hip hop, right? A lot of people, present day, present time, really forgot why hip hop was created. Hip hop was created as a means to spread messages, coded messages through our communities, because we had no channels. You know what I'm saying? We had no way to speak to each other. We had no way to really pass information on a very large scale. You know what I'm saying? So the first rappers were the first community reporters. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's what it's about. That is the foundation of hip hop. So me, I guess me just being somebody who understands that, I honor that. You know what I mean? Like, hip hop is my vessel. Hip hop is why I'm standing right here. You know what I mean? Hip hop is why I'm wearing the clothes I'm wearing. Straight up, you know what I mean? So, I mean, for me, it's like, don't get me wrong, like, I won't say I never go to the studio and like try to make some ignorant shit. You know what I mean? But most of the time, like, yeah, I believe that music is the most powerful force in the world aside from love. I truly believe that. I believe that music has the power to fully mold a person. I could tell what type of person you are based on the music you listen to. Straight up. You know what I'm saying? If all you listen to is trap shit, 9 times out of 10, you're a trap nigga. Or you want to be a trap. You know what I'm saying? And if you listen to like a whole bunch of Erykah Badu, 9 times out of 10, you're a very spiritual person, right? Right or wrong?
Yes.
Tell me if you disagree. You know what I'm saying? So that's how I look at it. Like, I just know how powerful music is, and I try to use my power for good. Like, that's it. I just, and they call me badass, right? You know what I'm saying? So,
It's interesting if you listen to or if you read Jay-Z's book, Decoded, and basically the whole concept of the book is he tells, you know, so people say, so what is it? Is it a coffee table book? Is this? It's an autobiography, but it's an autobiography told through his lyrics. That if you really want to understand his journey,
it's one of my favorite books.
Just listen, just read his lyrics. He's telling you his life story through his lyrics.
Yeah.
So it's a way that he's able to express himself and express where he's coming from.
Yeah.
About what he's seen, and to the same point when he says, you know, the way I was rapping in Reasonable Doubt is different than the way I was rapping in Blueprint, because my life is different.
Word, straight up.
And so you see how that evolution then even takes place, where, and you can actually listen to your lyrics and listen to your albums and see the evolution, where it's like, yeah, you'll rap about background and coming up in Brooklyn, etc. But you'll also rap about the country we live in. You'll also rap about what we hope to be.
You know, and please forgive me if I'm getting this wrong, but I believe it's a Nina Simone quote. It's either Nina Simone or Maya Angelou. Excuse me if I get it wrong, to those who know where this is about to come from. But one of them had you know, this saying where artists are like, you know, like the beauty about artists is that we can report the time. Like, you can look back years from now and get a sense of the current time based on the art, like someone's music. You know what I mean? And for me, like, that I wasn't thinking about it like that when I made this album, like, oh, I want to document this time. But after I made it, I was like, wow, like, this is really going to be an album that, you know, 10 years from now, you're going to be able to be like, this is what 2017 was like. You know what I mean? Like, this is the music that I made in that time, influenced by this time. I'm sorry, I don't know why I said that.
No, well, and so let me come off that. So we talk about, you know, I think about the work of ROBINHOOD. And we are completely unabashed and unapologetic about the fact that we will focus every single day on ending poverty. Every way it shows itself, everywhere it hides itself. And I feel like part of the battle that we have to fight every single day, and Robin has been at it for 30 years, you know what I mean? And I feel like part of the battle that we have to do every day is also about how do we shift the narrative. Part of the beauty of hip hop, part of the beauty of the culture, is that hip hop has been able to shift a narrative about communities, about us, right? And so when we're thinking about how do we shift a narrative around, again, in this city alone, and you know the areas, in this city alone, you have 1.8 million people who are living in abject poverty. It's crazy. When you think about the wealth in this city, that 1.8 million people live in abject poverty, and many, many more are literally one missed bus away. You know what I'm saying? Like one sickness away. How do we shift the narrative to make sure that people understand that even if that's not you right now, this is your fight?
Yeah. I think, you know, one of the ways we shift the narrative is, you see, one of the key things I find different with present time and, like, you know, let's say like 40, 50 years ago, there's no obvious leaders. There's no clear leaders. Before we knew who our leaders were. So the fact that there's no leaders really makes it hard for you to lead a herd. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's what I experienced out in the rally that day. There was no leader. It was just a whole bunch of, like, and I don't want to say sheep, you know, because, you know, those people were like a little more woke than the people, you know, that wasn't in the protest. But, you know, we just there with like chickens with our heads cut off. You know what I'm saying? Because we ain't got there's no lead, there's no guidance. So I think, you know, that's definitely part of it. We need to appoint our leaders. You know what I mean? And they really need to be held accountable for representing us and speaking for us. You know what I'm saying? Like, it need to be a council of them. You know what I mean? I think that's a big problem. I think another thing is, you know, when it comes to our own communities and to the people of color in the room, it's about supporting each other. But it's deeper than that. Because, like, you know, we're gonna keep having this conversation about how we need to support each other and how we need to, black need to buy black. But I feel like we need to take it to a new level. And that level is, we need to talk about capitalism. And I say that because that's like the word they've been hiding. Throughout this whole fight, throughout this whole struggle, that's the word that, like, we've been ignoring. That's the word, like, we've been turning away from. Like, oh, like, yeah, you know, that's bad. Like, oh, you're a venture capitalist and shit. Like, I don't know, you guys seen that new Jay-Z interview on Rap Radar?
Yeah.
And, you know, it just made me think because they asked him that question. And I could tell, like, he was conflicted. Because, like, you know, they was like, yo, how do you feel about when people, you know, say that you're a venture capitalist and you're just a money-hungry dude? If I was him, I would have answered it like, I am a capitalist. And you know what? We all need to be capitalists. Because in this country, like, as long as we want to live in America, we got to be capitalists, whether you like it or not. Because if we don't cap, we get capped on. Look, I'll tell you this. Being capitalist in America is like learning how to fight in high school. It's like you being bullied all your life. What you gonna do? You're gonna learn how to fight, right? So that's what we need to do. That's the narrative change right there. We need to cap. That's what we gotta do. Like, yeah, we need to work together, cap together for sure, but we need to cap. Keep that in your head. Capitalize. Don't view that as a bad thing. You know what I'm saying? Don't be a bad person about it. Be fair. We all got hearts and feelings and emotions, but that's what we need to take. I think that's part of, you know, switching the narrative. But finding those leaders and capitalizing. I mean, as long as we're gonna live on American soil.
Right. But that's the thing, right? But you've done that, right? Because part of it is how do you focus on ownership? That you're not relying on somebody else. Because that was, you know, one of the points that Jay made in the interview when he was talking about LeVar Ball. And he said, you know, I bought 3 of those ZO2 shoes. He's like, I didn't get them yet, but I bought them. You know, but his point was, he was like, you know,
I should take like 5 weeks.
Exactly. You got to make each one.
They got to make them right when you order them.
but his point was, why do you have to play by Nike's rules?
Facts.
You know? And part of it is when we're talking about owning a narrative, there's a key part of that line of owning a narrative, it means owning. Right? And I would actually take that back to even the leader part. I tell you, one of the things that I've been really inspired by and the things that I've seen is the fact that we haven't waited for people to tap us to tell us we're a leader. Joey, straight up, look at this room. They're all here because you sent out a tweet saying, I'm going to be in New York, come check me out.
Facts.
Leader, right?
Facts.
VFILES, leader. ROBINHOod, leader. Where it's just like, no one had to tap you, no one had to tap VFILES, no one had to tap me in ROBINHOod to come out. It's just like, this is where we're going to be, this is what we're going to talk about, and it's standing room only. You know what I mean? So I think part of the beauty of not having to wait for someone to tap you or say you are the leader is the fact also then the power is with the people.
Yeah, but I agree. But like, I still think it's really important for us to know who represents us as a whole. It's like, look, we have, like, not to say we gotta play by these rules, but if we're gonna beat the system, we kinda gotta play the system to beat the system. You know what I'm saying? So the same way there's a government, we need to almost create our own. Like, there's a fucking House of Representatives and then there's a fucking Senate House. We need to have that as well amongst our own people. Because we need to know, all right, like, yeah, we can all be leaders in our own right, and that's what I want. That's what I think everybody should do. And I'm not, and don't take this as me saying I want to be the leader of the free world. Like, that's not what I'm saying. I mean, shit, I'll take the job, I mean, if I have to. But, you know, so what I'm saying is, like, we need to know who are the focused few that represents the greater all. We got to. Because then we can't move accordingly if we don't. You know what I'm saying? Like, you can have Joey Badass talking in New York, Westmore talking in Cali, Chance the Rapper talking in Chicago, but we're all doing it separately. You know what I'm saying? We need to be synced. We need to all be connected. And that's the problem with it too. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's like an ego thing even when it comes to leadership.
That's right. And I think part of the thing that syncs us up is knowing who it is we're going to fight for. Part of the thing that syncs us up is knowing who we will always protect. And that, I think, is part of the argument about how exactly do we stand united. Because if we can look and we can say, okay, listen, Joey's out here in New York, you know, Joey's out in Brooklyn, Wes is in the Bronx, you know, VFILES in Queens, whatever the case might be, but who they're fighting for, that's the same.
Yeah.
What they're saying, that's the same. Who they're advocating for, that's the same. And so their mission and their goal, that all stays united.
But it's also upon us to, like, help each other out.
Yes.
Like, if you see that brother slacking, everybody should feel the responsibility to take that action to help him. Straight up. Straight up. No second guessing. No second thinking about it. Like, if he don't know what you know, let him know what you know. Give him some knowledge. Because he out here looking crazy, he making all of us look crazy. Real talk.
That's exactly right. So when you think about this next phase of your activism and this next phase of your voice, where are you going to lead us?
To the gates of heaven? Man, I wish I could answer that question, but I don't, like, you know, even though I was talking that hot super psychic shit, you know, I can't see the future, you know, clearly. So, you know, who knows? I didn't even think I'd be sitting here if you asked me that question 2 years ago. You know what I'm saying? I didn't even think that. So, who knows really? But what I do know is I won't ever stop using my voice. I won't ever stop fighting and representing the people who don't have a voice. I do know that. So hopefully that takes me to, you know, a greater place. But yeah, that's how I feel. I can't really answer that question right now. I don't know where I'm gonna lead motherfuckers to. Shit, follow me, you might fucking get killed. You know what I'm saying? Real shit. But you know what? I ain't scared to die. by what I believe in, for what I believe in. I ain't scared to die for that. So if you feel the same way, we out, my G. Shit.
You know, it's I remember when so before I ended up taking on the position as CEO of ROBINHOOD, I wrote this story called The Other Westmore, and yeah,
I haven't read it. I ain't gonna do some fake.
I haven't read it either. It's all good, you know, guys. But you know, so it's interesting because the basis of it was the fact that, you know, when I was finishing up, this was back in like 2001, I was just finishing college and I just received a Rhodes Scholarship. So I was getting ready to head out to England on the scholarship, and the local paper was the Baltimore Sun, and they wrote about this kid, this local kid who just got this scholarship. And at the same time, they were writing about 4 guys who robbed a jewelry store. Yeah. And the process of robbing a jewelry store ended up murdering an off-duty police officer. And the cops found all 4 of them, and one of them was named Westmore. And so in the paper, they're writing about these 2 Westmores, you know. And as I was getting ready to head off to England, and you know, he was getting ready to spend the rest of his life in prison. He's now in year 16 of a life sentence in prison. And I'd gotten to know him, and you know, first I just wrote him a letter, and the first letter that I wrote him was like, you know, hey Wes, my name is Wes. Here's how I heard about you. And I had all these questions, and then he wrote me back, and then the one letter turned to dozens of letters, those dozens of letters turned to dozens of visits. And you know, I've known Wes now for well over a decade. And the thing I wanted people to understand with the story was that, like, if your takeaway from it was that this is about a good Wes and a bad Wes, or if your takeaway from it was that this was about, we both came up just our moms, that this was about a good mom and a bad mom, or one kid got sent away and another kid didn't, or whatever, then I would argue that not only did you miss the point, I would argue you didn't even read the book. Because what I really wanted to show, you know what I'm saying? Like what I really wanted to show is that it's the same thing, where there are probably cats who you came up with in Brooklyn who are not selling out concerts around the globe right now. And people can make very quick and glib and probably incorrect assumptions about what got you to where you are and what got them to where they got to. And I felt like it was part of my responsibility, our responsibility, to be able to show people that that line is real thin. And how much luck plays into it, how much circumstance plays into it, timing plays into it. But if you look at just the natural abilities and what we're not tapping into in this country, what we're not unearthing in this country, what we're not fostering in this country, how much talent we're leaving on the sidelines, and in many cases, it's to no fault of their own. It's because we haven't been able to change the circumstances and change that narrative. And that's why your work is so important.
Thank you. I just want to say, like, I could definitely relate to you feeling like, all right, if this is all you got out of it, then you didn't read the book, because I feel the same way with my latest album. It's like, if all you thought about it was too political, you didn't fucking listen. I can think about like 10, 20 words to describe it without using political. Emotional, expressive, artistic, authentic, real, like, you know what I'm saying? Spiritual, powerful, important, poignant. You know, like it's, so like I feel the same way. I can relate to that. You know what I'm saying? It's like a lot of people just look at things and because of the circumstances, you know, they can't really see it for what it is.
And then feeling their sense of what they should do about it. You know, because it's the type of thing where I think a lot of people are really wondering in their own minds, like, what do I do? Like, I have, you know, you have people all around this city who actually have a platform to impact the lives of kids and families that we came up with. If I'm standing there and I come to your show or I come to you on the street and I say, Joey, what do I do? How can I help?
I will tell you this. I will tell you, gain knowledge of self. Gain knowledge. Because that will empower you. And you will figure out what you need to do that way. Because that's what I did. You know, I'll tell you, like, just the whole process that I went through. I told you, you know, a piece of it, but it was Freddie Gray, it was Michael Brown, it was Trayvon Martin, it was a whole bunch of list of names and hashtags that I don't have to go through. You know who they are, you know their names. And, you know, it was the feeling of like, yo, like, why do I feel helpless? Like, this can happen to my brother, this can happen to my dad, my cousin, my friend. You know what I mean? Then I started to feel responsible. And not for why it was happening, but because of who I was. You know what I'm saying? The voice that I had, the platform that I had, I started feeling responsible that I had to do something about it. So, you know, what played into that, I really had to make a decision. Because it's funny, I was working on 2 albums at the time. And, you know, one, which is my next album, is like, it was introspective. It's like just what's going on with me. Because I feel like I still haven't really given my listener that. I've been through, you know, 5 years in the game and everything, but there's still a side of me that I haven't shown to the world. That, like, I feel like I'll be ready to show on the next album. But anyway, I realized that had to wait. Because there was a bigger issue that I had to address. You know what I mean? And I felt like, you know, it was really, it was all spiritual. It was all me feeling like that's what God put me here for, to say and do right now. You know what I mean? I'll be honest, I forgot where I was going with that.
Hey, I'll be honest, you took us with you though.
Hey, I'm glad I came for the ride. You know
So let me ask. So I'm gonna ask you one more question, and then I know folks here have questions too. We'll open up to them. Can you give us a sneak peek as to what we're going to see with your next album?
Yeah, like I think I just kind of, you know, let it out the bag.
I'm actually talking about give us a sneak peek.
Oh, you like talking about like spit a verse or something like that?
Yes.
I gotta keep it out shit now. I want to share. I'll do it. I just, you know. I was gonna do that, but it's hard to do that one because you know what I'm saying. Like,
say that shit.
yeah, we're gonna say that shit. Shout out to me. I gotta wait for the album. I'm trying to capitalize. God damn it.
So do we want to open up to questions as well that people might have?
Please.
Let you pick. Good.
Man in the front.
All right. So received this question actually. Joey, fun fact. You actually went to the same high school I did.
What year were you?
Me, I graduated in June.
Okay, so we wasn't going at the same time.
No, like, you know, there's like a fiddle league, sort of.
Yeah, no, for sure.
Can I get a microphone for a second? I can't hear myself.
I can't hear you.
All right, so to get into my question, so like I said, I just graduated. I'm heading off to college in like 3 days actually. Friday.
Where you going?
It's called Colgate. No, they did not invent the toothpaste. It's upstate. I know, thanks. But here's why it's not a great school, and this will lead into my question actually. So here's the thing. Colgate's demographics are going to scare a lot of you. Over 70% of the school and my class is pompous white kids. And I've met a couple of them at, like, you know, reception.
Ain't that like every college?
No, I mean,
Except
it's a lot of
colleges, of course.
no, I mean, like, HBCUs are lit, and other schools aren't as white, but
It's HBCUs.
that's true. But like, there are other that aren't as white and, you know, pompous as my school, right? But here, to get into my point, like, I met some of these kids at receptions and whatever, Oh my God, I hated myself because all they talked about were all the summer homes they went to, all their bougie pastry shops they went to, what every high-end fashion shop they went to, and at that point, not only did I feel like I couldn't relate, but I identified with like that helplessness you both referenced in the book, and also that you felt at the rally, right? So at the point I was like, I do not want to deal with these people too much, but eventually I found other students of color. But also, wait, fun fact actually, number 2 fun fact. I'm actually a first generation Algerian immigrant. A lot of people don't know that because they're there, but yeah. And I was actually able to find a bunch of other students of color that I got along with, not necessarily Algerian. In fact,
yeah, word.
I'm getting to it.
Sorry, I'm getting impatient.
My bad about the art. But basically, like, I'm one of 3 Algerians on campus and also that area. And that leaves me feeling, both disenfranchised, but at the same time, like, excited because I have the opportunity to make some change. So my question, finally, I'm getting to the question, is for all 3 of you, actually, since you're the one who started the VFILES, I'd like to ask you guys, what advice would you have for like someone like me, who's heading off to the people who are going to end up being the ruling class, who don't know shit about what we go through? And what do you suggest I do to extend our reach? And what do I mean by that? I mean help teaching us how to cap and not be capped on, teaching us how to finesse the supremacy and all that stuff. That took a while.
I think how I would first respond is first congratulations on what you're about to do. Second is I disagree with the premise of your question. Because when you say you're going to school with people who are set to be the ruling class, says who?
Facts.
Says who?
I mean, it says you now.
All right, you own that now. So that's coming from you. So my point is this, it's like, and listen, Joey made a really important point when he was talking about the idea and the importance of knowing yourself and knowing your history. If you know yourself and you know your history, you can't stand there and call someone else a ruling class. Because if you know your own history, you know you come from a ruling class. You know what I'm saying? Like I feel like one of the biggest challenges I had was I used to think that my background was somehow a deficit. I had to get my mind right. My background is not a deficit. My background is my greatest asset. You feel me? Like I come from the blood of Garvey. I come from the blood of Tubman. I come from the blood of Shabazz. I come from the blood of King. I come from the blood of Marshall.
Facts.
That's my history. That's my blood. So therefore, I don't kowtow to anybody. Because they have already shown me that you don't have to kowtow to anyone. Your job is to step up and go get your crown. Because they've already paid for it. So if you want to forfeit it and call someone else a ruling class, that's on you.
To that point of like our backgrounds making us who we are, I say being black is like being a very nice prepared meal, well seasoned. But my answer to your question would be, what Wes said, plus, bro, just keep doing you. Just keep being you. And, keep doing what you're doing. Because you obviously been doing great things if you're where you're at now. Just continue, bro. And don't even let that shit phase you. CJ.
Wagwan. Alright, so I have a question. Do you feel like the solution to especially with the ROBINHOOD situation, right? Do you feel like the solution is more of us helping other people or more like being more financially literate? I feel like that's the one problem with our community. Like everybody here, I don't know how well you guys are with banking, but it's not something we learn in school. I feel like financial literacy is very important. So I want to see your guys' perspective on that. You know what I mean?
My perspective will be back to capitalization. You know what I'm saying? That's all a part of it. You know, finance, economics. You know, we know the subjects that we're not taught in school.
Right.
You know, so my answer to that question would be, yeah, that's definitely a part of the problem and a part of changing the narrative.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, you know, it's true that we learn from birth how to be consumers.
Facts.
Right? From birth, we learn how to be consumers. The question is, are we also learning how to be producers?
Right.
You know, we learn how to be employees. And you know, how do we learn to be employers?
Right. Exactly.
You know, but it's interesting because
we learn how to be capped.
Right. Because you're also learning how to be a cog in a system instead of actually understanding how to run the system.
Right.
So here's the thing. But actually, I think that when we talk about the role, and so you asked about, for example, the role of Robinhood in this. I think the role of Robinhood is twofold. I think the role of Robinhood is to make sure that everybody understands that inequality and discrepancies, that's everybody's issue. And so I don't care where you are, where you sit, the fact that we have so many people who have been functionally left out of the system should bother everybody. No one should be getting a good night's sleep when you consider the fact of how much inequity we still have in our society and how much work we still have to do to address it. Now, the other piece, I think, though, also comes back to this, is that part of the role of Robinhood is not just to support the organizations on the ground. Robinhood helps to fund over 200 organizations in this city alone. 200 organizations who are on the ground doing the work, whether they're focusing on housing, whether they're focusing on education, whether they're focused on criminal justice reform, whether they're focused on transportation. People who wake up every day with the sole focus of making our society more equal, Robinhood will support, right? However, the role of Robinhood also is going back to the point earlier, is how exactly also do we influence the education and the structures and the policies that have gotten to the situation in which it is.
Sure.
Because the truth is that we have to be able to be honest about how we got here if we're ever going to be effective on how we get out. And when you look at the challenges that so many communities are facing, we can't act like that some of that stuff has not been completely intentional. So if we have intentional discrepancies and intentional disparities, then we have to be intentional in the way we dismantle it. We have to be intentional and honest in the way we break it apart. So I feel like the role that we have collectively, and when I say Robinhood, I'm not just talking to me, I'm like, he's Robinhood Nation, she's Robinhood Nation, everybody here is Robinhood Nation. Our collective responsibility is to make sure that we are always going to protect those who need and deserve a champion. And we are always going to question those who made the system as it is and are not doing everything they can do to fix it.
Okay.
Yeah, so you said high school students, our resources are kind of limited. So I want to know your advice for someone who's in high school and is struggling with having the confidence to use their voice, not only to speak up and being threatened by the consequences of speaking up, but also learning how to speak up, finding a medium and how you go to music, how do you find what to do and the confidence.
Try writing. Try writing your thoughts. But what I will say to that whole overall is, whatever it is you want to do, I hate to say the word again, but cap while you're young. You know what I mean? Like, while you're young, you have the most time, space, and room to mess up. You know what I mean? And to get it right. So I will also say to you, all the time that you're taking to contemplate on whether you should speak up or not, you could have rather be speaking up and making the change that you want to see. So, don't be discouraged. Don't be discouraged. And like I said, try writing your thoughts down read them to yourself until you find the courage to read them to other people.
And I know that's what's your name? Ashmani. I was just noticing the ankh that you have on your chest or around your neck. I actually think
good eyes.
You know what I'm saying?
I was watching that damn eclipse.
Still got it. I gotta tell you, I think the answer to your question is actually around your neck. Because if you know the history and the symbolism of the ankh, right? The history and the symbolism, when you go back to Egyptian history, and it's actually understanding, we're talking original man here, right? We're talking about the idea of everlasting power and eternal life. So I think part of the answer to your question is understanding the fact that you are part of a continuum. That people sacrifice in order for you to get there. You will sacrifice for the next person sacrifices for the next person. You're part of a larger continuum. Your power and your voice is in the ankh. Because the ankh really is your North Star. So that's why if you ever question, you say, does my voice matter, or so on and so forth, you simply just have to look down and know that your voice matters. Because you're already part of a larger continuum and a part of a larger process. The only thing the ancestors ask me to do now is don't give that up.
My guy right here. Only because we made eye contact.
How did it feel touring with Logic, and what were the connections that you built with them throughout the tour?
It was cool. It was cool. Answer your question? You know what I'm saying?
Hi, I'm Shanair. Hi, I'm Shanair. I'm from Jamaica.
Yeah.
Yes. So I have this question, conversation with my family, and they seem to see what's going on in the Black community as not really their problem. And me being a journalism student, I'm trying to tell them this is our problem. Even though we're from the Caribbean and we're not Black Americans or African Americans, this is part of we need to be in this conversation with them. So I guess what I'm asking is how can we get more people from the islands or the Caribbean or people from other countries who come to America and don't see themselves as African American or Black Americans, this would be their problem?
I think we as a people have been trying to figure this out for years. You know what I mean? The term is Pan-Africanism. And I think you could speak a lot on that.
So no, that's exactly right. And you know it's interesting. So I think both with Joey and myself, so we're brethren with you because our family's from Jamaica as well. Right? Right. And so my great-grandparents came to this country from Jamaica and came to South Carolina. They gave birth to my grandfather. When my grandfather was 6 years old, the Ku Klux Klan ran my family out of this country. And they terrorized them until they left. My great-grandparents wanted nothing to do with this country. They never came back. My grandfather did. My grandfather left when he was 6 years old, and he vowed to come back to this country. My grandfather eventually came back to this country. My grandfather became the first Black minister in the history of the Dutch Reformed Church. He was a minister of a church in Mott Haven, right in the South Bronx. The last church that he led was actually a church over in Bed-Stuy over in Brooklyn. And my grandfather was the most patriotic man I've ever met in my life. Which is kind of ironic, right? Because this is a guy who, when he was 6 years old, left this country because he feared for his life. His parents, my great-grandparents, wanted nothing to do with this country. But he came back. And he didn't just come back, he made it a point to be active in the community. He made it a point to be active in this country. He made it a point to raise his family in this country, and he made it a point to raise his family to love this country. And he didn't do it because he was naive. You know, there's a great song by Donny Hathaway, and Donny Hathaway, the song is called "A Song for You," where he says, "I know your image of me is what I hope to be." And he was talking about this relationship that he has with a woman where he knows she sees in him something that he's not, but that he aspires to be. I know your image of me is what I hope to be. And I feel like that's kind of like the relationship that my grandfather had with this country, where the image that he had of this country was that what he hoped it to be. And I feel like part of the power of immigrant stories, part of the power of my family, his family, your family's story, is it's part of our responsibility to make this country what we hope it to be. What we know the promise of this country is. What we know this country claims to stand for, but oftentimes has felt very short of it. Our responsibility then is to push it to be better. Not to stand there and just say, I told you so. But the reason that our family sacrificed, the reason that our families brought us here and wanted us to be here and to love here, is because if we're not part of the American story, then the American story will never be what it hopes to be. And so I think that we all have a collective responsibility no matter how we got here. Your responsibility is to look around and see something that isn't working and say, it's on us to fix it. That's the promise of this place.
I like to say this, you know, growing up in a, you know, Caribbean family household and everything, there's many things I've learned from just watching, you know, my predecessors. You know, my mom, I was the first generation born in the United States, right? So, you know, back to, you know, everything you were saying, I know how you feel. I've seen that, you know, within my family. And I think, you know, a little bit to your point, when it comes to the Caribbean people, for some reason, there's the Caribbean people and the Southern people. I see this a lot with the people of color, to be, you know, completely transparent. There's a super brainwash on those people. Brainwash, straight up. And it comes from religion. It comes from slavery. There's a lot of things that come from, I mean, just think about it like this. With our generation, everybody in this room, we're way more open-minded than our parents' generation. Way more. We asking questions. Way more of us are atheists. You know what I'm saying? Like, we doing psychedelic drugs. I mean, y'all laugh, I'm being real. I'm being straight up. Like, this is our generation. And I'm talking about people of color. You know what I'm saying? So, like, I think it starts with us. Because the previous generations, like, they're already too stuck in their ways. You know, we can do the most we can. Like I already know. I mean, I don't think my family ever thought that I'd make an album like All American Badass. Like, I know from the day I told them I wanted to rap to like present day, I know they gotta be like, wow. Like, this is a funny, like, that's your son? That's your kid? Yeah, I'm talking crazy, I don't got no interviews. Talking crazy, like, you know what I mean? So I believe it start with us. It start with you, start with me, start with everybody in this room, and just really pushing the new narrative. Because they following the old one. And some of them, they too stuck in their ways, they don't want to pick up a new book. And, you know, we kind of just got to let them do that. You know, we take care of them, we look out for them, try to feed their soul when we can. They ain't always going to work, you know what I'm saying? But I think that's what we do. I think that's the answer to your question. Yeah. Start with us. We got to raise our kids with this mindset. So, I'm in right over here.
I noticed on your last project, so it was very, you were speaking to like a very direct points of everything that you wanted to talk about and accomplish. So it's like from creative to like creative. Like, are there points where you feel like sometimes?
So what's it called? I peeped on the last project. You had a very specific point, like you were trying to reach, and like you were trying to basically enlighten the people to everything that was going on. And it's like a different song on each song, of course, but it's like each song was pointing to like this one overall direct message, right? So basically, my question is, as a creative, do you have points where you feel like you hit a wall? And if so, what do you do to get re-inspired?
I've never felt like I've hit a wall. There's been times where I definitely feel like, oh shit, I found myself on writer's block. You know what I'm saying? I need to take some turns. I need to find some new directions, get the fuck out of here. You know what I mean? But never that I've hit a wall and that like there's nothing else to come from. But you know what I like to do to find inspiration is different things. I like to read. You know what I'm saying? Anytime I pick up a book, by the time I'm putting it down, I'm like 9 times out of 10 always writing a rap after. Like it gives me so much inspiration. It could be a book on Beatles. You know what I'm saying? Like I don't know, just give me inspiration. It could be conversations. You know what I mean? Like this is inspiration for me. The fact that we sitting here, I'm chopping it up with Wes. You know what I mean? We here in VFILES, this platform. This is inspiration for me, for my future. Like oh shit, like you're right. These people here are for a tweet. You know what I'm saying? Like that's showing me something. Also, I watch a lot of documentaries, docuseries. I like people who I look up to. Rest in peace, Dick Gregory. You know what I mean? I like to watch them speak. Like, the crazy thing is, I didn't know Dick Gregory was a comedian until after he passed. Huh? I saw him as an activist, straight up. Like, I watched Dick Gregory interviews that are like 2 hours long, all day. And I never knew this man was a comedian. You know, it makes sense now though. Like, the way he be snapping and everything. But you know, rest in peace to that man. Those are just, you know, some ways. Or maybe I even take a walk. Take some scenery in, you know what I mean? Or meditate. Meditate is always a good thing to do too, when you're looking for inspiration.
What are some things that high school...
Whoa, your voice is way deeper than I thought. I was waiting. Is there somebody behind you, nigga? You knew that was coming too.
What are some things that high school kids or anyone else who wants to get involved, what can we do to support Robin Hood's work and messages that are in your music?
Great question. I wouldn't even plan. That was a good question.
That was a great question.
You know, so the first thing that I would tell you to do is, if you have a chance to come follow the work that we're doing, check out our website. Check out Twitter, check out Facebook, because not only is that a chance to learn more about the poverty fight that we're in, there's ways of being able to get activated and how to get involved in the fight. And that's the thing, right? It's like, you know, with the way that Robin Hood structures itself, Robin Hood also understands is that this is a universal fight. You know, we have members of Robin Hood Nation that are 4 and 5 years old. You know what I'm saying? Like my kids, I have a 6-year-old daughter and a 3-year-old son. Okay? And they are my heart and my soul, and they are 2 of Robin Hood's youngest but most excited members of the family. You know what I'm saying? Because they understand they are coming up and understanding this is their fight too. And so the thing that I would encourage you to do is come check us out, either robinhood.org or either Facebook, Twitter, etc. And contact us, because we can show you multiple ways of getting involved in this fight. And whether that's aligning up with different community partners that we have on board, whether it's going out and figuring out ways of being able to align and change the narrative around a conversation, whether it's about thinking about policies and making sure your voice is heard as these policy conversations are taking place. But the most important thing is knowing that there's a place for you. And there's a real role that we need you involved in this larger fight.
Word. And you know, as far as supporting music, it's by the album. You know, by the album, you know, share the message, you know, with your friends. Like if it's hitting you that way, like ain't no shameless promo. Like if it's hitting you that way, spread the message. You know what I'm saying? That's all I'm saying.
Talk about it. Talk about it. Blast it out.
Alright, so I actually want to answer the question it's a two-part question for Joey and Wes. Back on what you said about knowing knowledge yourself, you feel me? And the second part of, you know, giving the others around you more knowledge, you feel me? I sit down and I watch a lot of documentaries as well, more from like the music perspective on artists that I look up to. And I take the questions that they answer from the people on the radio shows, like as if they're talking to me, you know what I'm saying? And I sit down and I'm not really a selfish dude when it comes down to the success of, you know, my homies at least, the people I keep around me. And I usually put them first, knowing that I have a feeling in myself that, you know, I got me. It's gonna happen regardless. You know what I'm saying? But to other people, you know, that don't have that type of confidence in themselves to take that first step, I usually push them towards that. But then at the same time, you know, going back to the knowledge yourself, sometimes I gotta admit it, be honest, when I see, you know, them prospering and I look back at myself and I'm stuck in my own path and I'm just like, yo, what do I do now? And nobody else has answers for me. Then I sit down and ask myself, I'm like, yo, what am I about to do? It doesn't stop me from helping them, but then again, it's like, you know what I'm saying? I be asked out sometimes, and I just be sitting down and I be thinking to myself, like, all right, cool. I sit down and I watch these interviews, I watch the documentaries and stuff like that, blah, blah, blah. But you know, it only goes as far as a media answer to the question, and it don't really hit a personal, you know, answer to me. So I was gonna ask, how do you guys deal with that? You know, you grew up with a whole group, about half the crew in the back. You know, sometimes if they was, you know, not feeling it, how you encourage them, and then again,
It's like an A for the crew in here.
well, you know,
Like right now we squat. Usually we be squat. You know what I'm saying?
but yeah, it's basically like, how do you pick yourself up, basically, and then on top of that, for the homies around you, because I got some that don't see it, even though I see it for them. How do you know, put them in that space to be able to see it for themselves?
Well, you know, it's crazy because I super relate to everything you're saying. Like, I feel like it's always easier to lift somebody else up than it is to lift your own self. You know what I mean? These are issues I go through every day. You know what I'm saying? These issues I'm still dealing with. I'm still trying to find the answer to that question, really. You know what I'm saying? When I'm feeling down, I try to, like, the best thing I can tell you is to turn to the people you love. Turn to the people who love you. You know what I'm saying? And, you know, I try to find whatever answers I need from them, or meditation is always very helpful when you're feeling any type of self-doubt. You know what I'm saying? So I'm not sure if the answer is your question, but like I said, I'm still looking for that answer myself, to be totally honest.
And I would echo that, and I would also say I would be careful about who you surround yourself with. I think an issue that I had when I was coming up is I was far too liberal and far too easy when it came to giving out that word friend.
Same.
You know what I'm saying? Like, oh, that's my friend, that's my friend. No, that wasn't your friend. Because, you know, my definition of friendship had to change. My definition of friendship wasn't just the person I was just kicking around with, and then I go do X, Y, and Z, and I go get in trouble, and I turn around and they're nowhere to be found. That person was never my friend. And so I think you have to be real careful about who you give that title to and who you keep around you. Because frankly, I came up with a lot of people that just turned out to be essentially leeches. Like, they were there to suck on you, but it wasn't like you were getting anything in return from them. And so the thing that I would say is, you know, when you talk about friends, and you know, you look at Joey and his crew around here, you talk about friends, these are people who want nothing but the best for you in all circumstances. If a person falls in that category, then they're a friend. If a person does not fall into that category, then they're something else. And I think then you need to proceed with caution about who it is that you want to surround yourself with, because your friends are people who make you better in every way. Your friends are people who will celebrate you when you do well, and when you have a bad day, they're there to pick you up. That's who you want to keep around you.
Thank you.
We've got about 15 minutes left, so we've got like
3 more questions, I think.
What's up, people? How y'all doing? How you doing? My question is, as a young artist myself, if you don't have any money, how do you become well known in your art form? Like, I want to
you that just in time.
Yeah, I want to be a rapper, right? I want to be a well-known rapper, but it's like I have no money, so I don't know exactly what I'm supposed to do.
You gotta finesse. You gotta look. Money, yeah, like I ain't gonna lie, like money is not important to fucking, be successful and shit, but there's always gonna be the talent. There's always gonna be what you're doing. That's, the selling point. You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, you need money to get in the studio. You need money to do this, you need money to do that. I'll just tell you my formula. The way I did, Mitch, you wanna say something?
I want to say something to him about that.
Come on. Oh. Make some noise for me from the Flatbush Zone, y'all.
I was just trying to go up here. Well known is not important. It's about the message you have. There are people who are way more well known than me and Joey. They have no message. So you want to be a guy that's getting listened to by a billion people with nothing? That's not giving anybody anything. Or you want to be a guy with a message? You start with a message, people are going to spread it. If you start with something positive, this guy's probably going to go tell this guy and this guy. But if you're just trying to get everybody to hear you, it don't really mean nothing. People are hearing me right now, but very few people are listening. It's about the message. So I hate when I hear people say, I want more people to hear me. It's not about that. It's about what you're saying. You say the right shit, niggas gonna hear you. You saying bullshit, niggas gonna hear you, but they're not gonna care. I'm out.
And I'll just say one thing, right? As the one person up here who does not have a record, I'm probably the least qualified to say anything. But I feel like
audio book.
I do an audio book. Amazon, Apple Music, check it out.
Better get them streams, bro.
But now is the flattest time to be able to get your voice heard. Because back, listen, when people were coming up in the game before, if it wasn't like 3 labels that heard you, you would never get out, right? Now, if you have an internet connection, you can get your stuff out there. And things go viral. And people start talking about you. So you're not waiting to figure out, will these 3 people call me back so I can get a deal?
And that's what I was going to say. Because, like, the way I even got, discovered by the manager who, brought me to where I needed that next level. I was 15 years old, and I just had an idea one day. I didn't have any money, you know what I'm saying? But what I did have, well, not even me, but my homie, he had a camera. You know what I mean? So I was like, it came to me like an epiphany one day. I was like, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna do one of those Hot 16 freestyle videos, and it's gonna be up on WorldStar. And that's how I'm gonna fucking blow up. And I did it, like, I hit up my homie, like, yo, come to school next day, bring your camera, like, yo, don't ask me no questions, bring your camera. You know what I'm saying? He came through, then I told my other homie, like, yo, look, after school, I got this little video, I want you to beatbox. You know what I'm saying? Like, while I rap. So, we do the video and everything, I spit Hot 16, whatever. I didn't even know what 16 bars was back then. So I rap or whatever. And I submitted that video to WorldStar, I kid you not, probably 80 times. They never picked it up. But I didn't quit then. What I decided to do was finesse. And the way I finessed was, because I decided to, okay, if WorldStar not gonna take my video, I'm gonna put it up myself. So, because I thought it was good. I'm like, people need to see this regardless, like, fuck WorldStar. You know what I'm saying? Like, they need to see this shit. So I put it up on my own YouTube channel, and then what I did was I changed the title to 15-year-old freestyles for WorldStar. So anybody who came and seen that video, for some reason thought they seen it on WorldStar, including who was at the time my future manager, Johnny Shipes. Like, when he reached out to me, it was one day before I was going to school, and I checked my Twitter. And he's like, yo,
I seen your video on World Star. And in my head, I'm like, no, you didn't. You know what I'm saying? But that's why I say finesse, man. You gotta finesse, like, shit.
Okay, well, I have a mic. So
That's right. So nobody's about to talk about it.
so you guys have been talking a lot about capitalism, or like, really, I'm saying like you men validating, or like trying to validate these people in the audience. I want to know, how have women fed your work, both of your work? And also, have you faced mental health issues? You talk about it with the people you're surrounded with. How have you overcame it? You know, besides money.
I don't think I overcame with money, but you know, wait. So you said how have women influenced our work?
Well, how have women fed your work?
Fed my work, okay.
Like, how have they stabilized you to be where you are? Because, you know, we're always here feeding you. Mentally, physically.
Yeah, 1,000%.
And then I could get to the next one.
Okay, so, I mean, you know, one, my biggest role model in my life and my first role model in my life is mom. Always been my mom. Literally, the way I carry myself, the way I speak, the way, like, you know, me just being who I am, it's because of my mom. Because of the way I was raised. And not to take credit away from my pops. My pops was there too, you know, raised me.
Men are always there.
Yeah, of course. I mean, your mother's stomach is a different type of, you know, a man can't even relate to that. It's like, you know, females, you know, you guys are amazing. You hold a baby for 9 months. Like, who can have that connection stronger than, you know, you can? You know what I'm saying? And for me, being a young man, I was a super mama's boy. So, like, a lot of my influence, a lot of my thinking, you know, straight up fed by my mom. You know what I'm saying? Comes from my mom. And then even with growing up and, like, you know, meeting women in my life. I have a big sister. Now I have a little sister. You know what I'm saying? Like, I was raised, you know, before I even get there, you know, apart from my mom, I was raised by all women. That was my family. Like, you know what I'm saying? It's crazy because it's me and my cousin Raekwon. And, you know, our moms are sisters. And we were both born in the same household 5 days apart. His mom was 16 at the time, my mom was 19. Yeah, my grandmother was going through that. You know what I'm saying? So we were both born at a time, like in 1995. You know, my family, at least the males in my family, you know, they're notorious when it comes to the streets. So when it came to me and Quan, like, we were the good ones. We were the good boys. You know what I'm saying? We were the babies. We were, so the woman really cultivated us and nurtured us. And yeah, like, you know, I have the utmost respect for women. And, you know, women feed my work every day. I'm glad you brought this up because I want to use this platform to say this. Like, I want to see, and I don't know if that sounds, you know, I don't want to offend anyone, but I want to see more women supporting women in this music industry, but in the world. You know, but I'm going to say it from the music industry because that's the field I'm in. And, you know, I just want all the women out there who have, you know, the inspiration and the dreams and the aspirations to do these things, but probably not the confidence. I want them all to know that, look, the same way us young men are out here doing it and we don't need labels anymore, you don't need men. And you don't need labels. You damn sure don't need labels either. You know what I mean? I want women to know that. I want to encourage women to take that. Like, I want to see an all-woman staff. You know what I mean? Like, I want more female. Like, I hate the fact that when we say artists, you think of male. You don't think of a female till you say female artist.
I mean, you guys were like naming people who you look up to, and it was just like, oh, man. You know, except Erica.
I mean, I feel, but I'm a man.
No,
who do you look up to?
Right now. I'm just saying for right now.
But hold on, who do you look up to?
Who I look up to? My mom, my dad.
Okay, but
other artists, but I can't put them just like on the spot.
Yeah, but it's like, you know, I'm a young man, so like for me to look up to Malcolm X or Dr. Umar Johnson or Dick Gregory or, you know, Marcus Garvey, that's totally natural for me.
No, it's
These
not.
are men No, I mean, you kind of pressing me right now. You know what I mean?
I'm always curious about men in the music industry, and I'm just like, do you acknowledge these like women that are pushing those people?
Yeah,
that are,
for sure.
You know, and are we going to talk about it? Are we going to sit here and talk about money? How do I get my art, and how do I get my art out there and get money for it? Like, all right, and you know, and how do you stabilize yourself? Who is stabilizing you? Who's like housing you? Who's feeding you? And who's encouraging you every day? Like, hey, you know?
Yeah, you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
Okay,
well,
so,
and the only thing I'll say about that too is that's not the only role that women do. It's not just about stabilizing humans. We are, you know, women are our guides. Women are our leaders. Women set the direction and set the pace for us. This is not just about do y'all clothe us and feed us. And so I think part of it is that for women, it's also about the embrace of what it means not just to be maternal, but what it means to be eternal. Right? What it also means to take that proper place and a place that God has already blessed y'all to have. You are the Alpha and the Omega. To be clear, it starts with you. You know, I remember when I first wrote The Other West More. One of the first interviews I did was with Charlie Rose, and Charlie Rose is bad. He asked me questions that sometimes you're like, I don't even answer you, Charlie. Like some of the questions that he came with, and you know the very first question he asked me, he said, "This is a story about two African American boys and their journey into manhood." And he said, and I turned to page 1, to your dedication page. And your dedication page is, this book is dedicated to Mama Lynn, Mommy, Nikki, Shani, and Dawn. He said, you dedicated a book about the journey into manhood of two African American boys to 5 women. To 5 women who helped set that path for all of us to come. And so the respect and the admiration is not simply about the fact that these are women who gave birth to me. These are not simply women who gave me food. These are not simply women who gave me clothes. These are women who gave me purpose. These are women who gave me direction.
Facts.
These are women who every day, if you ask what keeps me motivated, is I want to make them proud. I want to let them know that I honor and respect everything they did. Not just for me, but for our larger glory and our larger humanity. And so I understand and I respect the point that you're making, but believe me when I say your job and your point does not end with being maternal.
I mean, that was but then I heard it.
And I also want you to know that, like, you know, just because we speak on the things that we're speaking about, in no way means we're excluding women from the work that we're talking about producing or the work that we've already produced. In no way. But like I said, I completely appreciate you for raising that, bringing this topic up for sure.
We're going to move to the next question because we got to keep moving. Thank you.
Back there in the burgundy.
Hi, I'm Iman. So kind of to like ask a pointed question and also kind of bring this full circle. The program is called Don't Call Us the Others. And I wanted to ask you a question in regards to the idea of othering in terms of Black women and women of color.
The idea of
othering. So I read a lot of like Black feminist philosophy. And one of my favorite books by Barbara Smith is called All the Women Are White, All the Men Are Black, and Some of Us Are Brave. And so that's the allusion essentially to Black women or women of color who exist in a very paradoxical vantage point of being seen but not heard, and therefore our narratives being ignored unless we exist in a certain way or seen in a certain way. And so for me, that's kind of the epitome of otherness. not even kind of existing within kind of the schematas that be. And so I want to ask you guys, as men of color and of influence and voice, you know, what responsibility do you guys claim in aiding and including women of color? And, you know, uplifting them, essentially. And you have a daughter, Wes. I assume she's brown, so. No. What's next?
She's beautiful. So, the way I didn't think about the term the other, and actually I think it's kind of framed, and I'll tell you a very quick story. I remember when I was writing the story, I didn't realize, and I don't know if the music industry is the same way, but in the literary word for books, everything you see on the inside of books, when you open up a book, all that is what the author wants to share. And everything you see on the outside of books, like the book cover, the book title, the airbrushed off the photos and the blurbs and all that kind of stuff, that's what the publisher holds on to the legal rights to. And I don't know if music's the same with the album cover, but they will hold on to that because they know that's their only chance to market to you, right? So they want the author to be happy, but if the author's not happy, then okay, right? And I remember I had a different title for The Other Westmore when they first approached me about The Other Westmore. They said, you know, hey, we want to have a conversation with you about the book title. And I was like, I know, great, because I have a bunch of ideas. And I started rattling off all these different ideas, you know, Baltimore Suns and all the difference and Out of Many and End of the Innocence and all these ideas. And they came back to me, they're like, that sounds great and all, but they're like, well, we think we have a better idea. And they said, what do you think about The Other Westmore? And I told them, I said, I think that's the dumbest book title that I've ever heard in my life. And they're like, what don't you like about it? I was like, there's a whole bunch of things. I was like, you know, one, the book isn't about two guys, so I don't know why put in the name. It completely negates that whole fact. Two, you know, I don't know anyone who writes a book and puts their own name inside of the title of it. And three, no one knows who one Westmore is, so I don't know why anyone cares who the other Westmore is, right? And I said that to them and they laughed, and they're like, those are all good points, but they're like, but you're missing the point. They said, it isn't about the name. The name is irrelevant. The most important thing about the title is the other. The fact that our society is full of others. And I think the point that they were trying to make with it was that part of the problem with the othering, as you pointed out, in our society, it means there comes a point when you lose your identity and you are now allowing someone else to define who you are. To other somebody basically means they have now lost control over their own process. And so the way I try to deal with it when it comes to my wife, my mother, my grandmother, my daughter, and all the women in my life is they are not going to be othered because they control their own narrative. They control their own path. My job is to uplift, support, educate, all that kind of stuff. But part of my big job is to make sure that they never have to go through a process of changing someone else's narrative of them. They own that. That's theirs. And so part of my responsibility is not to control a narrative for them. Part of my responsibility is not to say this is who they are. Part of my narrative and part of my responsibility is to get out of the way and let them play. They're strong enough to control it on their own. The problem, I feel, is when I try to get too involved. When I somehow feel like I have to set a path, I have to set a way, and then allow them to follow. I need to let them lead. Because that's naturally who they are. They don't need to take their paces because I gave them permission. They need to take their paces because God gave them permission. They're not where they are because I said it's okay. They're where they are because that was their birthright.
Yes. How do you get, I think you slightly misinterpreted my question. So I acknowledge that Black women have this strength and this soul and this knowledge that comes from this paradoxical vantage point, but how do you get under them? How do you lead the way, and how do you get under them and support them? And the platforms that both of you have, how do you use those platforms, or how do you plan to, in the future, to get a new vantage point?
I think I could, speak for Wes. What we do is not just for, I guess, black men. What we do is for the whole community. So, in everything we do, we support undeniably, undoubtedly. I mean, I hate to just make it seem so simple, but, straight up, we're not just out here rocking for black men or just for black women. We out here rocking for the human race.
I think, I understand what you're saying. And the truth is that we will always uplift and support our earth, right? We will always uplift and support the power, which is our women. At the same time, I think part of what it means is we have to be humble in ourselves to say that they don't necessarily need you to walk them through or guide them through the door.
Agreed.
What we have to do is stop getting in your way. What we have to do is humble ourselves.
Are you more trying to ask like, I'm just really trying to, understand the question. Are you more trying to ask like, what is our plan or mission to empower women?
I guess.
Or to like, what is our plan or mission to, I know it's not guide.
Yeah, so I guess essentially you guys have a platform, and a lot of what you do and say, whether it's explicit or implicit, creates a message around women of color, in proximity to you. So, you guys have a platform where, if you were not explicitly, if you are using certain words that are, not of respect to women.
Like bitch.
Yeah. But I guess my pointed question is like, I don't necessarily take that word to kind of disregard, your care of black women. But, one of the things you do implicitly and explicitly,
Well, I think I get where you're going. So what I would say to that is, it's funny. I'm scared to say call a girl a bitch in my songs. That's not how I get down. So why would I want to put that in the music? Like literally, you guys are bumping with one of my recent songs, 500 Bands, right? And that's more of a, it's different from my album. It's more like a braggadocious type of style. And even on that record, you don't hear me call a girl a bitch. I just ain't got the heart to do it. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's just not how I get down. Like, I say little R&B chick. And the line was originally written little R&B bitch. But when I got to that booth, I was like, nah, that ain't me. Like, I don't rock like that. Like, I don't just call my ladies in the street bitches. I actually call them queens. You know what I mean? So, and just to your point about control, that's kind of where I was trying to get to when I bring it to women in the music industry. Because I feel like a lot of women in the music industry are dominated by male control. And not even like, it's like mind control. It's like, oh, you gotta do it this way if you wanna make it. And I'm here, to answer your question, I'm here to remind women that they ain't gotta do it no way but the way they wanna do it. And that's why I say I want to see more independent women out here. But I'm speaking directly on the music industry because this is the field I come from. But that's just the microcosm of it. I want to see independent women everywhere, in all industries, in all fields. But I'm speaking to mine because I experienced this shit firsthand. I hate the fact that when we say artists, we think about males. We got to say female artists for you to think about to vision a female. You know what I'm saying? And I want to see more full women staffs. You know what I mean? Like, if you're like me, when it comes to my team, almost everybody is a person of color, a black male, because that's how I want to do it. You know what I'm saying? That's not how anybody's telling me to do it. That's how I want to do it. I want to empower people that look like me. And, you know, I want women to feel the same way. I don't want women to feel like I need to be following a man or I need to be doing this with the man. No, you can be the boss and you empower other people that look just like you.
I think about it, I say this, I'll celebrate my wife, but I don't validate her. She doesn't need me to validate her. And that's the difference. Amen.
Do you still want to sit there, or do you want me to wrap this up?
Let's take one more question.
Okay.
All right, my man right here. Nice blaze on. You got the thing poking out your pocket. You official. I was called square. I don't know what that shit called.
I appreciate it.
That shit all well tailored and all that too. The shoes are out. The shoes match the pocket squares.
I'm a huge fan of your song, For My People, one of my favorite songs. But in your songs you speak about your faith in God, and I just want to know how important is your faith in your activism?
I'm glad you asked this question. Oh, wow, because I've literally been speaking about this all day with a friend of mine. Okay, where do I want to start? Let me just collect my thoughts. So, growing up, I've always been a spiritual person, right? And I remember there was this question that I asked my mom when I was young. I was probably 6 or 7. And the answer she gave me definitely attributed to who I am. Like, I believe she definitely gave me the best answer. So what it was is I was in the back seat, my mom was driving, you know, we're driving through Brooklyn. And I'm looking out the window and I can't help but notice so many different types of churches. You know what I mean? Like, I'm like, there's a Catholic church, and a Christian church, and then, you know, there's a mosque, and there's a center. Like, I was confused, you know what I mean? I'm just a little kid, so I asked my mom, I'm like, Mom, what's our religion? Because I knew we were going to church every Sunday. I didn't even know what church we were going to, but I knew we were going to church every Sunday. It was a part of my life where that was routine, you know what I'm saying? And I know there's a girl in my class who wore a hijab. You know what I mean? And I know that had to do with religion, but I didn't really know. So I was just really curious, like, Mom, what is our religion? And she said, what I believe is the best thing that she could have told me. She said, we are non-denomination, which means we believe in God, but we don't have a religion. Now, for me as a young kid, what that did for me was keep my mind open. It didn't close my mind. It didn't make me feel like, all right, this is just the one way. It actually opened up a new can of worms. I had more questions after that. You know what I mean? So ever since that day, I always kept a very strong relationship with God. And my relationship with God was just so direct. Like, I felt God in here. Like, I grew up in Flatbush. You know what I'm saying? You know how Flatbush is. And I remember, you know, coming home or going to school every day by myself, because I was the only child in my household. So, you know, and my mom was single, she worked double time, and, you know, my dad lived in Brooklyn, but just not with us. So most of the time I was alone, and I had to look out for myself. And the person, well, not the person, but what I had was God. A lot of times I was really scared. You know what I mean? But I had God. Like, I used to, when I used to be coming home from school, walking through Flatbush, I was that kid, like, even though I lived in Flatbush for 17 years, I grew up in Bed-Stuy. Like, that was my hood. You feel me? Like, that's the neighborhood I walk around and I know everybody. It was Bed-Stuy. So in Flatbush, I was just this kid. And I was scared. You know what I'm saying? I used to walk around there and like gotta dodge getting robbed every day. You know what I mean? I didn't have nobody to walk home with. So I would just walk with God. And I kept that relationship. But as I got older, as I got to high school, I realized that I came to a point where I wasn't having those conversations anymore. I was learning new things. I was becoming even more open-minded. And, you know, what I was learning, you know, I was on the path of enlightenment. I was learning about the chakra systems. I was learning about many different things. And I came to a point where it was like, I'm God. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm fully in control of my destiny. Like, is there a God? And it wasn't the greatest place to be. Like, by the time I left high school, I started realizing, like, yo, I have not been praying. Even just recently. Like, I just started praying. Like, before, I just started praying every day. Like, it is in my to-do list to pray. You know what I'm saying? So, to answer your question, my faith connected to the activism, connected to just me, is very strong. It's very present. My faith gives me power. You know what I'm saying? Every time I pray, you know what I ask for? Strength and guidance to continue doing what I'm doing. So yeah, my faith is strong, and I gotta keep it strong. I believe in God, and I also believe this. I also believe that we all have our own religion, personally. We all have our personal belief system. But God is what connects us all. I believe God is the universal energy flow. That's what I think God is.
Whoa. I don't know about you guys, but that was pretty special.
It was.
Thank you so much. I've got to give the takeaways, right? The things we got to take home. So, capitalize. That's your word. Okay?
Word of the day.
The word of the day is capitalize. In Australia, you spell it.
Even though she didn't like that. She don't like that word right there.
But capitalize, and by capitalize, we mean capitalize on you. If you can see it, you can make it happen. You've got to see it in your own head. You can make it happen. You can capitalize. And then the other thing that I'm taking away here is leadership. So look at all of us here in this room. I'm so glad that you came out, and the VFILES family. So thank you for everything. The ROBINHOOD team that's here. Be leaders. We're going to create this partnership together. We are going to do some serious shit. Okay? We're here for a reason. We have a purpose. The purpose is to allow you and help you capitalize on who you are. To believe in who you are. To believe that we're here. And to have people like Joey as role models and people that we can look up to and follow, listen to music. Music is the voice. We believe at VFILES that music is the voice of fashion. And we have one line, which is, if you want to be heard, make noise. We're going to start making some real noise. And Joey, Wes, I mean, all of us, thank you just for being here.
No problem.
Thank you very much, Joey. Keep going, Joey.
No, I just wanted to say, like, you know, I really appreciate, you know, just being here. I appreciate everyone in the room. I appreciate you guys being so patient, waiting for myself and Wes to come through and just have this conversation. You know what I mean? I'm humble, to be honest, you know what I mean? And thank you too, Wes.
And honestly, this is beyond humble for me, man. I mean, there's so many things that we're taking away, that I'm taking away from tonight. But the thing I'm taking away is I'm taking away energy, man.
Yeah.
Like, we have so much work we got to do right now. We have no time to be patient. We have no time to wait for someone to tap you on the shoulder. We have no time for someone to tell you you're a leader or when you're not a leader or to wait your turn. Your turn is now, man.
Because what's going to happen is we're going to not take this shit serious and we're going to all be unprepared. And that's the worst thing we could do. We're already unprepared. So let's start now. Just like I was telling you now, all this time we take it just thinking about it, we could be doing something. So let's get active.
Turn it back.